I will call to order the meeting of the Chicago Board of Election Commissioners for Tuesday, May 19th, 2015. Good morning, everyone. My name is Langdon Neal. I'm chairman of the board. Seated to my left is Commissioner Marisol Hernandez. First item on the agenda is the consideration of the agenda. Any additions, deletions, or suggested modifications? Hearing none, we'll move to item 3, which is the approval of the minutes.
Motion to approve.
Minutes are approved by Commissioner Hernandez. I will second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved. So at this time, we'd like to recognize Commissioner Richard Cowen. And as I had the pleasure to say to the family earlier today, Richard was more than just a fellow commissioner, both a fellow commissioner on the State Board of Elections as well as here at the Chicago Board of Elections with me, but he was truly a friend of mine. And I met Richard in 1985, October of 1985, and I told my wife I met Richard before I knew you. And that's true. That's true. We had a lot of great times together as colleagues on both the State Board of Elections as well as here at the Chicago Board of Elections. And then later, maybe in times after the meetings or at conventions, we had a time to be friends too. And I can honestly say that in 30, it's actually, let's see, so 1985 is 30 years, right? In 30 years, coming up on 30 years, yes. We never had a disagreement, never had a fight. We didn't always agree with everything we did on here at the Chicago Board or at the State Board of Elections, but we were never disagreeable. I know that I respected Richard's opinion so greatly. He was a marvelous lawyer, and I didn't practice with him, but I know he was a wonderful lawyer, and I know his colleagues are here. I know he was a wonderful lawyer because of the logical and careful thought process that he exhibited in many, many issues that came before the board, whether they were purely legal issues, such as making decisions on objections to nominating petitions or during a quasi-judicial process that we have here before the board, or whether it was just a matter of deciding policy and what was best for the voters and what he thought was best for the public. And he was always consistent in his care for the voters and his concern. And I like to say, and I am very proud of, and I take this part with Richard with me as I am leaving and transitioning off the board here. In my 30 years with Richard, we never had a vote that came down to politics. Even though he was a Republican and we're Democrats, it never, ever came down to politics. It was never a decision based on D's versus R's. And I tell you, that is one of the things I'm most proud of in my 18 years here on the board, is that they were always not unanimous votes. There was always not 3-0. There were some 2-1 votes. And I think a couple occasions I was the one and you guys ganged up on me. But it was never because of politics. And I had this discussion with many civic organizations, and I don't think they understand me. They really don't. Because partisan politics, we are so steeped in partisan, and sorry, well, I get on my soapbox, but I think it says, I think I can speak for Richard now, if he would let me, please, Richard, that we are so steeped in partisan politics in everything we do in government, that we are stymied by it, and we're prisoners of our partisan agendas, and that it was never part of what we did here. We were always devoted to the voters and running elections, and it really didn't matter how it came down on D's and R's. Really, it was irrelevant to us. So I thank Richard so much for that, because he taught me of that, and he exemplified that. And he was truly a marvelous man. And it wasn't it wasn't something that he pretended to be. It was who the person he was. He genuinely cared about the voters. He cared about issues of diversity. He cared about issues of diversity of thought, diversity of being, and he cherished that and carried it with him in his life. I know he did. Mm-hmm. And so he was a man of integrity. He was a man of his word. When he told me something, I could take it to the bank. I saw him stand up and take some criticism from the partisan groups, and he withstood it and stuck by his word to the board. And he knew more about elections than just about any of us, and I know that I will miss him as a friend. And he's one of Chicago's great lawyers and great people, and he should be remembered for that.
And I just want to say that I got on the board in February of 2007, not knowing what I was doing, really. And Richard was a mentor to me. I sat here and for a while and really not saying anything because I was listening to Richard, and as Langdon says, his thoughtful process, his way of he would explain his reasoning out loud, and it made so much sense. I say that there's a lot of smart lawyers in the world, in the city of Chicago, but there are very few who are wise. And Richard, I consider to be a very wise lawyer, a person of the highest integrity. I echo everything Langdon has said, but I admired Richard because he always wanted to do the right thing. And I think that is the highest praise anyone can receive. And I can point to no better person than him who deserves that praise. He was so knowledgeable, and at the same time so witty.
Yes, he was.
Oh, and and I loved his sense of humor. Yes. The way we could be in a very serious discussion, and every once in a while he would say something, and it would just kind of break the ice, yes. and we could move forward. But I, in my almost 8 years with the board now, I can say that I have learned so much, and I owe so much of that to Richard, and I will never ever forget his wisdom, his grace, his wit, and on top of all of that, his love for his family. I remember him coming here with his grandson from Florida.
Yes.
He would bring him, and he would talk about his other grandchildren, doing different things with them, and it's a person I truly, truly admired, and I will never forget.
Well, at this time, we'd like to read a resolution for the record and have it spread upon the record for as long as the Board of Elections shall exist. Whereas the Honorable Richard A. Cowen served with distinction for 20 years as Secretary and Commissioner with the Board of Election Commissioners for the City of Chicago from 1995 until his recent passing. Whereas Richard served prior to that for 15 years as a member, Chairman, and Vice Chairman of the Illinois State Board of Elections. Whereas Richard's service with both election boards was marked by deciding issues based on the needs of voters and the fidelity to the law and never partisan politics. Whereas Richard championed the use of new technologies and services for voters, which led him to urge and take pride in Chicago being the first election authority in Illinois to offer services like online voter registration, and more recently, providing electronic poll books in every precinct. Whereas Richard always served the voters and the election board with unflinching integrity, an inquisitive mind, a warm sense of humor, and an infectious laugh. Whereas Richard served also with the Republican Party as an attorney to represent local election boards and candidates seeking office in the north and northwest suburbs, as well as for decades advising Cook County Township officials. Whereas Richard was an accomplished litigator, most recently as a leader of the Stahl Cowen law firm, where he was recognized for deftly handling complex commercial cases. Whereas Richard leaves behind a beloved wife, Nadia, and the children he so loved, Lisa, Susan, Scott, and Steve, as well as his 11 grandchildren and 1 great-grandchild. Now be it resolved that the commissioners and employees of the Board of Election Commissioners for the City of Chicago join the many extending heartfelt condolences while celebrating and honoring a life well lived. Be it further resolved that this resolution shall be part of the official record of the Chicago Board of Election Commissioners for the City of Chicago, and that a copy be presented to Nadia. Accepted by the Board of Election Commissioners for the City of Chicago this 19th day of May, 2015. Thank you. Okay. All right. Well, what we need now is one of the Richard Cowen jokes to get us going back. All right? Just to smooth us back into it, right? Ah. Wow. Yes, Mr. Goff?
I just want to say, Nadia and I and Josie, we've gone out to dinner several times and had a great time. And I told Scott that his dad and I played golf quite a bit. And one time we were in Florida at the Durrell Country Club. And he didn't have a very good day of putting. And I said, Richard, it'll get better. He says, nah, if it's bad, it's bad. So we got off the 14th hole, and he took his club and he threw it in the water. And he looked at me, and I looked at him, and I said, I'm not going to get it. And he says, there's something floating in there, I'm not going to get it either. I mean, Richard was truly a Renaissance man. He loved fine wines. You know, when we'd go out to dinner, Richard always ordered the wine because he knew what he was doing. He was very thoughtful, very his intellect was incredible. But when Langdon said he never had an argument, Richard and I would fight. We'd fight, I'd leave, I'd go down to my office, and about an hour later, either I'd come up to his office or he'd come to mine. We'd sit and talk, and he says, let's go out and get a drink. We'd get a drink, and everything was okay. So he truly was an incredible man. I've known him as long as the chairman. I was at the board, and I used to go over to the state board, and when Richard came over here, it was a perfect fit. We used to kid about it. He says, he learned at the state board that actually did the study over here, and he really will be missed. The employees loved him. He'd walk around the office, say hi to everybody, and he's truly a gentleman, and he will be missed.
Thank you.
Well, I think Richard would want us to carry on with business, wouldn't he?
Yes, he would.
He would.
But
You're welcome.
Do we want to have a recess?
Well, I don't know, you're welcome to stay, or certainly, we can take a recess for 5 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, let's take a recess.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll go back on the record. We move to item 5 on the agenda, Executive Director's Report, Mr. Gall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, we've finished cleaning up for this last election, last series of elections.
Yes.
We hadn't had a chance to put up November before we ran into February and then April. So we're cleaning up those right now, making sure everybody's being paid. We're going over our budget, what monies we have left. We are starting to work on getting ready for the upcoming election. Ms. Bateman's working with ES&S on the poll books. We're working, trying to get all contracts and everything lined up for the upcoming year. So everybody's working. It's had a couple of days off, take a couple more off, and that's it. So we'll be ready to go.
All righty.
Ms. Bateman.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
As Mr. Goff said, we are cleaning up. The warehouse will start their big job of cleaning out the ESCs and you know, packing everything away. Registration right now is caught up. We're doing a great job as always.
Okay.
Every department, IT, absentee, election support. I don't want to miss anyone, but every department here is, you know, is happy that the election cycle, which included 3 elections in a short period of time, it has completed, and we're just working on closing everything out and moving on to the next election, which is March of 2016, which is right around the corner.
Yes.
I was at a conference a couple weeks ago for AECOI out in Rockford. There was a, Scott County, Iowa's auditor was there, and they have same-day registration, and she invited anybody who wanted to come and observe their election on November 3rd to please come. So I've talked to Mr. Goff about it, and I think we'll have Audra and some people from Community Services go out there and take a look. City of Bloomington is involved in the special election this July and September. So they have invited people to come observe and help because they are going to introduce the same-day registration. I believe it's July 7th is the primary, July 7th.
So they've been municipal cycle?
That's the
It's the
special
special
election
election
for congressional
for the congressional
race
district.
to replace Representative Schott.
Yes.
Schott, yeah.
So they're going to introduce same day, so they've invited anyone who wants to come and observe and help and whatever to please do. So we're looking at that as well. You know, just trying to get some tips, you know, what works, what doesn't in these elections. So that's on the agenda. And everyone's just working to move forward with this new bill, with this new public act that contains a lot.
Well, just to let the board members know, the same-day registration, we have to have a permanent site here in our office.
Yes.
So remember what happened in November when we were downstairs in the lower level, between counting absentees and doing same-day registration. I think we're bursting at the seams here,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, because there's just not enough room in this building.
Well, I'm sure you'll have a recommendation for us
I think we may have to go outside and get another,
for the same-day registration?
for the same-day
I think that's a great
registration
idea.
downtown.
Yeah.
I do not know any other way of doing it but outside of this building.
Yeah. I think that probably would be a wise decision. Kelly, will you have a recap on our same-day registration equipment, electronic poll books, and kind of give us an overview of the good, the bad, and the ugly, so to speak, and recommendations moving forward?
Today?
Oh, no.
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 We are moving forward.
Sometime
We are,
this
yes,
summer.
absolutely, we are
Okay.
moving forward. had discussions with the SNS, so we are, again, moving forward to 2016. Even if it were a parallel election, we would need to make some improvements, but it's not. It's a whole new animal with voting and same-day registration, grace period registration within the polling place. So the discussions are open, and we are moving forward. So yes, absolutely, there will be an update, a status update on the e-poll books and moving forward for March 2016.
Great. Okay, Mr. Allen, you stepped down? Okay. Okay. Any other questions, Commissioner?
No.
Okay. We'll move to old business. You want to talk about your infrastructure projects and changes in election administration?
Yeah, some of it you've already touched on.
Yes.
With the new legislation, it is going to cause some problems. And there is that bill that's out there about the language bill, Jim. One's
14, House Bill 1452.
which,
Good.
which will impact on us if it is passed. So Jim knows a lot more of it than I do, but
Well, the bill would require election authorities beginning with the 2016 general election to make election materials and to provide ballots in foreign languages where a language group, a minority language group, constitutes 10% of the voting age population in census tracts. And there's been some projection that in the city of Chicago and more in the county of Cook, that under the new legislation, there'd be a requirement to provide ballots in Korean and in Polish. The people at Dominion advise us that the touchscreen voting device, the E2P, would not have enough memory, or there's concern whether it would have enough memory to accommodate either of those two languages because they're graphic-based languages. They're not strictly text-based, but graphic-based, which eats up more memory. The bill it's a House bill. It was passed by the House, it's in the Senate. It's on third reading. And we don't know at this point what's going to happen with the bill. But I know that the Senate sponsor of the bill is aware of our concerns with it, as well as concerns of Cook County Clerk's office with respect to how our present voting equipment would handle the additional memory requirements. And so we're just waiting to see if that bill is going to go forward or not.
Okay.
And I will certainly keep the commissioners advised.
Thank you. Thank you.
So do you know of any other jurisdictions besides Cook County and Chicago have written expressing concerns?
I'm not aware of any. No. No. In most other jurisdictions in the state, I shouldn't say most other jurisdictions, I think that there are some that would be required to provide ballots in Spanish, where they are currently not required to do so. But the only jurisdictions that I believe would be affected by a requirement to provide ballots in more than just Spanish would be Chicago and Cook County, and that would be Korean and Polish.
Okay.
So that would mean 6 languages for us, including, or 5 other than English?
5 other than English, that's correct. Right.
Wow. Okay. We talked about electronic poll books, and obviously that we talked about the language and what it would mean to voting equipment. So, any other legislation, Jim, you want to highlight?
There is another bill that may get some traction, and that is a bill that would require election authorities to permit online voter registration through the 16th day before the election. Right now, online registration was cut off when regular registration is cut off on the 28th day before the election. This bill would permit individuals to register online through the 16th day before the election. And that bill may pass. And I've had discussions with Mr. Goff about it, and I believe he feels that it could be implemented. It certainly puts additional strains on the resources of the board and other election authorities
So what would be, now someone can go online and fill out the registration form and send it to us?
To us.
How would they actually be able to, how, do you know how that would work?
Well, right now, I mean, they can do what you just said. They can go online, they can take an application and print it out,
Right.
fill it out, mail it in. But they can also register online. It's purely electronic registration. But the cutoff is the same cutoff for regular registration, the 28th day before the election. This would move the deadline closer to the election, which means election authorities have less time to get that information and get it disseminated to the polling places in time for election day and also for early voting. I think
It's also going to impact on the campaigns, because right now they're getting their poll sheets ahead of time.
Yes.
Poll sheets will be incomplete. So we're going to have to look at the whole poll sheets and everything else that we supply. It's going to impact on this agency.
Yes, yes.
I think Mr. Allen had a
Jim,
point.
would it allow us to forestall the beginning of grace period registration and possibly offer us a little bit more time, especially in a primary year? I mean, could we begin grace period then in tandem with early voting as opposed to grace period now begins the day after registration closes?
There's been no change to the grace period.
I was looking for a silver lining there.
So grace period under the law now extends all the way to election day?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, in precinct.
It starts
In
the
precinct.
27th day before
Yeah,
in office.
27th day before the election.
And it is considered grace period, correct? Through election day, right? That's what it's called?
Yes, I mean, it is
Call it
in
same day, but
the
it's called
section
grace
of the
period.
code that creates grace period voting and registration.
So same day registration is really grace period registration.
It's in the same section, right.
Okay. All righty. Anything else under old business? We'll come back to you, Mr. Allen, on the Executive Director's report. Did you have anything particular you wanted to address today?
No, nothing. Can be communicated later.
Okay. I don't believe we have any new business today, do we? All righty. Mr. Scanlon, legal status report?
Well, Mr. Chairman, we have two matters up this Friday on motions to dismiss election contest petitions that were filed from the February election in the 1st and the 25th wards. The petitioners in the 25th ward case did not even file a response to the motion to dismiss, so I suspect that that's going to be granted on Friday. A response to the motion to dismiss in the 1st ward case was filed, and that will be heard on this Friday. On Tuesday, the 26th, there will be a motion to voluntarily dismiss the election contest that was filed by John Pope in the 10th ward. And so that will come to a conclusion, and that's an agreed order. That's an agreed motion to voluntarily dismiss it. So So I believe on the 26th of May, we'll probably have concluded all post-election litigation from the February and April elections.
Well, I just want to say that, that I think is a moment to stop and look at it from a big picture view. In that, an election that had maybe, what, 11, how many votes in the runoff in the 10th ward? Maybe 11, 12,000?
There were about 11,000.
Okay, 11,000 votes. The election between winner and loser was separated by 20
20 votes.
20 votes. And an election contest petition and all the parts that go to putting an election together and counting votes, not just for merging the election results on election day, but the late arriving absentees, or late arriving mail votes. All that didn't result in one single vote that was changed after a team of lawyers and observers studied everything we did, to the point where they're asking for, and after complete transparent review of every aspect of what we do, they're moving to dismiss their contest. So I think that's significant for this agency to recognize that despite the best legal talent in the city of Chicago, not one single vote could be challenged. So kudos to everybody that made that happen.
Agree, absolutely.
Does that conclude your report, Mr.
It does,
Scott?
Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All righty. There is no financial report. So at this point, I'll open it up for public comment. Does anybody want to speak to us today? Mrs. Maroney. Good morning.
And I'm sorry for your loss of Commissioner Cowen. I know many of you loved him.
We did.
Probably all of you did.
We did.
And
Thank you.
certainly was a very good advocate on many regards for the Republican Party, and was always one that we could go to for different concerns. And so I know that I'm not speaking for the whole Republican Party, but I'm speaking for myself, and I think he was a good man.
Thank you.
And so today, right now, at this moment, I'm wearing the hat of Defend the Vote.
Okay.
And wanted to go, there's two issues I'd like to address.
Okay.
The first one is in regards to the voting equipment that is currently used by Chicago. In April, not of this year, but of the year past, Commissioner Cowen asked for the voting equipment to be considered to be put up for sales of the parts. And sadly, I missed the follow-up on that, and I was wondering if you could tell me if the board had voted on that motion and where that was at.
I don't remember a motion to let me understand.
In the March meeting, he
Yes.
motioned that in April, the following April meeting, that there would be a discussion to put the voting equipment up for parts, you know, to look into that process because you were concerned about it becoming aged.
Oh, well, so I think that he did encourage us to look at upgrades and improvements in new equipment. No question about that. And that is underway. I mean, we continue to look at that. But right now, our concern is with funding. And as you well know, and I'm sure everyone else knows, it is very difficult to get resources from government at this particular time. So it's a dual effort, looking at what's out on the marketplace, what improvements there are, what improvements could be purchased, what equipment could be developed, and then how we would pay for it. So that's an ongoing process. The staff does.
And is there because I know that Mr. Allen had expressed at the last board meeting concerns about the equipment, and I'm wondering what are your primary concerns and where you're at with addressing that, because this is the prime time to do it.
Yes.
Since we're we have enough time to make these changes, and also to lobby for replacement of these machines, which are, I believe, by your words, not, adequate or that's not
Well,
quite
no, I
the word,
think-
whatever the word was, it was reflective of being substandard.
Well, I don't think it's substandard. I think the fact is that our equipment is now 11 years old, 10 years. 2006 was the first
2006.
election.
This was the first election.
Right,
The
so
purchase in '05.
05, so it's 10 years old, and it has withstood 3 elections in the last 6 months. There is naturally electronic equipment that's packed in a carrier case, put in a truck and delivered to a site and back on the truck, and in between each site is punched 12,000 times or whatever, ballot scanners. It's been tested, battle tested. So I think there's some normal depreciation or wear and tear on the equipment for sure. As you heard earlier today, there may be additional legislative requirements that our equipment can't meet. So you're right, this is a good time, and we are actively engaged in that now. But I think staff, okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Goff, thank you for rescuing me.
No, I'm just saying that with implementing same-day registration, all the changes we have to make
Yeah.
for this upcoming election that we haven't done in Illinois is taxing this office right now to see how we can complete this mission
Yeah.
for this next upcoming primary.
Right.
So I mean, I don't know how I can add that on and new equipment. New equipment is always when you want to put it in when you have an off year. The best time to put in new equipment is after the 2016, when 2017 is an off year, where we can sit down and actually do mock elections, actually have equipment brought out to every single one of the libraries, train people on how to use it, actually touch it, transmit, do all that stuff. But to do it between now and next year's election, with same-day registration coming in and worried about funding, we're going to have to figure out what bodies are going to be out there to do same-day registration. I know I'm getting a little frustrated or over, but this is going to tax this agency. And I've told the board members, we're like a bucket. It keeps filling up, and one of these days it may overflow.
Yeah,
And
right.
we're getting right to that point now.
So we're looking at it, Sharon. We definitely are. As Mr. Goff says, I don't think we would ever use new equipment on a presidential election. That would be really a risky decision. But the process takes a long time, so it's underway.
Well, there is a HAVA complaint that is currently undergoing its final stages, and you may be facing the requirement to replace the equipment because it has never been legally tested or certified for the error testing requirements that are both for the federal and the state rules. And
I think,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I think
No, go ahead.
we've revisited that more than many times, and we have said that, the State Board of Elections has reviewed the equipment, has reviewed your complaints, and it has found nothing wrong with our equipment, and we are complying with the state requirements. So I don't think there's anything more to be said about that.
Other than if they want to make whoever this is you're referring to wants to make a decision that we have to get new equipment. Remember, Part B of the decision is where to find $25 million to do it.
Well,
So
that was my
just
question,
make sure
is
that
how many
make sure that
millions
is
do you need?
included.
Is that just for Chicago, 25 million?
Probably so. Yeah. Yeah, that's the ballpark million. So that's got to be part of in other words, a negative decision and a funding strip. Those are the two things that have to come together.
That is always the case.
Yes.
Yep.
That is always the case. However, if the machines aren't properly certified, then I guess the state's going to have to find the money.
There you
Well,
go. Exactly
yeah.
right, Sharon. Exactly right. And that is a huge, I guarantee you, if you go down to Springfield and knock on the door and say, hey, we need $25 million for election equipment right now, be careful. We may find ourselves being thrown out, right? Because there are obviously some other tremendously pressing needs on the state right now.
Well, yes, but I suppose that the integrity of the minority vote and the vote in general is probably one of our most pressing concerns and always should be, and I'm sure you would agree with that.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt, we're united on that front.
Okay, so then my second issue is regarding the findings by the Attorney General in terms of the fact that your FOIA officer, Joan Agnew, who has been writing detrimental FOIA reports for some time and saying all sorts of statements about FOIA, has failed to go through the certification process, and I have the letters for you from the Attorney General's, if I may approach.
Actually, I got a copy of that letter.
Then may I leave it, I would like it part of the record, please?
Absolutely.
Mr.
I have it.
So I would like to know why Joan Agnew, your FOIA officer, has failed to certify, and I believe she's about 2 or 3 years late in doing so.
Well, first of all, I think that's, if I may.
Go right ahead, Commissioner.
I think that's an issue that has been taken up with the Attorney General's office. You received a reply finding that the matter is closed. It does not affect any FOIA responses that the board has made. And, I mean, I think that's it.
So aren't you kind of embarrassed that your FOIA officer hasn't
You know
done the
what,
training?
excuse me.
No, Joan.
There, again, though, there, first of all.
Public comment section?
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
You
I-
really don't have to
Yes.
defend yourself.
Against flat, untrue, false allegations while I'm sitting here that are not even supported by the letter that she has
Yes,
just given us.
we recognize that. We
Okay.
recognize
What do you
all
mean?
those
It
things.
says right here that you never completed the FOIA training.
Ms. Maroney, you gotta address me and the board.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
wasn't sure because she was out of line.
Your comment is duly noted for the record.
And will you require your FOIA officer to attend the required training?
Our FOIA officer will comply with the state law.
And the state law requires training, correct? So
Yes.
then, I guess, can I have a time frame that might occur?
I think that
No,
has
we'll just
occurred
really
already.
comply with the law,
Great,
but
okay, so then I'll have you FOIA that.
And, yeah.
Okay. And then switching hats here, now I'm speaking as my authority allows me through the Cook County Republican Party.
Okay.
Okay, and-
Mr. Goff had committed to Chairman Del Mar that he would respond to his letter, and I would just like to urge that response because he's been waiting for it.
duly noted for the record.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Maroney. Anyone else today? Okay. Well, I don't believe we have need for an executive session, Mr. Scanlon?
No.
All
Okay.
right.
Motion to adjourn?
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
We stand adjourned until, let's see. That would be, are we going to meet?
Next week, but
Yeah, I don't think we need the 26th, no.
No, we do not.
So shall we adjourn until June 9?
Okay,
June 9th? June 9th at 9 o'clock.
okay, thank you.